I'm Simon Bennett. I'm catchment coordinator for the Alt Crossings and also project manager for the Alt Crossings Priority Catchments project. So I'm just going to very quickly cover environmental permits and the regulations around those permits. The vast majority of this presentation, John's going to cover on farming rules for water. But yeah, just to give a background and an overview for environmental permits, would you mind skipping to the next slide? Perfect, thank you. So environmental permitting regulations were rolled out in two phases. So the first phase in 2007, second phase 2010, and basically they converted or convert over 1 million other permits, consents, licenses, etc., that all at the time had different forms, different procedures that applicants had to go through in order to obtain them. So it basically brought everything into one regime. So what is a permit? Well, basically, a permit allows an activity to take place which can have an impact on the environment. And the conditions of the permit essentially detail what restrictions are in place to limit that impact. So permits can cover water pollution, air pollution, radioactive contamination, and numerous other environmental hazards, for example, waste. So the permitting process is basically in place to maintain a balance between human activity and environmental protection. And there are two types of permits, standard permits and bespoke permits. Just skip to the next slide if that's all right. Basically, a standard permit is a simple permit with pre-assigned set standards that have to be abided by. They're quick to apply for, and there is guidance available on the specifics of those permits. A bespoke permit is one that's very specific to a unique activity or a unique scale of activity. So it can relate to a standard activity, but the scale of it is far and beyond what is accepted under standard, so it becomes bespoke. Or it can be a standard activity that just happens to be in a protected area as well. So if an activity or an applicant is within a SSSI or the specific sensitive receptors, then it would be a bespoke permit that would be necessary. And there are some exemptions from environmental permits, which some of you may have or have had in the past. And these are called U exemptions, D exemptions, S exemptions, and T. So U exemptions are for uses of material, D exemptions are for disposal of material, S for storage, and T for treating. So as an example, a U1 that some of you may have or have used is the use of rubble to maintain paths and tracks. And exemptions can only be used if the conditions of that exemption can be met. So there's full details on environmental permits, which standard rule ones exist, and also exemptions on the gov.uk website. Or if you Google environmental permitting regulations or environmental permitting exemptions, you'll get the full guidance on there as well. Next slide, please. So in addition to environmental permits, and even when permits are not in place or exemptions, the farming rules for water do still apply. So that's primarily what we wanted to focus on for the purposes of this presentation. So I'm going to hand over to John, who will give an overview of what those rules mean. Over to you, John. Cheers.
Thanks, Simon, and good morning, everybody. My name's John Stalker. I'm Senior Environment Officer for Agriculture and in Cumbria and Lancashire area, so it's quite a big patch to cover, and been doing the job for 12 years now in this role. So next slide, please. So what are the DEFRAS new farming rules for water? Well, the term new isn't actually apt because it came in 2018. On the 2nd of April, they became law under the Reduction and Prevention of Agricultural Diffuse Pollution regulations. Unfortunately, DEFRA decided to do a soft launch, so farmers are not bombarded with all these rules and regulations that obviously can be quite upsetting when there's a lot of rules to already follow. So the first year, 2018, was like I said, soft launch. It was all about advice and guidance, and where we found breaches regulations, we were just sort of encouraged just to communicate what these regulations are all about. They're not designed to be difficult. They've used them on the back of COGAP, which is the Code of Good Agricultural Practice, which most farmers tend to abide by anyway. So they're simple existing rules, proportionate and practical, and pretty reasonable to do once I come on to them. So the next slide, please. This is one of the leaflets that they produced. It's an excellent leaflet, and basically we've got this legislation, but this really is the meaning behind the rules. So as you can see, there's just the eight rules to abide by, and if you just pick any one of those out yourself, if you have a quick read, you probably realise you're already doing that. So what I'm trying to say here is that they're not too difficult or onerous to be aware of. I'll go through some of them now anyway. So the next slide, please. Rule one is probably the one that farms not in like nitrate vulnerable zones are probably haven't been applying the same sort of focus on paperwork that farmers in NVZs were made to do through those regulations. So rule one is like I say, the most important one, and ones that we go onto farms for our inspections are the ones where we're finding that farmers not in NVZs might fall down on this particular bill, because what it's asking for is farmers to plan the manures and fertilisers. So farmers in red tractor schemes and assurance schemes probably will have a nutrient management plan. Those not in it, in a scheme, may not have a nutrient management plan, and they may not have tested their soils every 5 years. So for us as regulators, this is an encouraging rule for us, because we can sell the benefits of testing soils and getting the best for your crop. So next slide, please. Yeah. Also, planning your manures and fertiliser applications. We require farmers to look at the risk before spreading. So obviously, not to spread on steep slopes, and to bear in mind weather conditions. So farmers outside of NVZs and so in the area where I live, in the Loon Valley here, this rule is good for us, because if we see farmers spreading sort of middle of December when it's been wet, we can use this rule to get on the phone and just ask them what's going on, because they obviously clearly haven't planned according to this rule. So it's a case of educating these farms about the rules when we get these sort of notifications of poor practice sent to us. You've got to abide by the soil type and conditions, and really, it's really focusing farmers to spread more carefully than some had done in the past. Okay, so next slide, please. This is a pretty basic rule, storing organic manures. Again, this was in COGAP. It's common sense. Farmers tend not to store manures 10 metres from coastal waters or streams or rivers. But we've actually had to use this rule once or twice, just to remind farmers that storing manures near streams is not a good idea. Okay, next slide, please. Again, this is an NVZ rule, and code of good agriculture practice not to spread when conditions are not suitable. And it's common sense, and not many farmers will spread on flooded fields or snow covered. But you'd be surprised. We have had a couple of instances where we've had to send letters out to farmers just to remind them of this rule. Okay, next slide, please. Again, nothing new here. 10 metres has been there for years. Do not spread manures within 10 metres of a watercourse, as well as storing it. So just following on from the last rule. And again, 50 metres of a spring well or borehole as well. That's always been there for many years. Next slide, please. This is just regarding your bag fertiliser, not within 2 metres of a fresh waters for your spreading there. Okay, next one. Yeah, and this is getting a little bit more technical. So we want farmers to protect the soil to prevent soil erosion. So farmers are requested to take all reasonable precautions to prevent soil degradation from over a hectare that may affect a watercourse. Here we've got serious runoff from a field, which can be quite significant to a stream or river below that farm. Obviously, they would cover the bed of the stream or river and cause quite a significant impact. So this also covers poaching by livestock. So yeah, it's one to be aware of. Again, we could also, with this rule, if it was above 1 hectare, we could notify the Rural Payments Agency for cost compliance breach. So it does impact on cost compliance regulations as well. Okay, next slide, please. This is Rule 7, which is protecting against soil erosion by livestock. So any land within 5 metres of fresh waters must be protected from soil erosion by preventing poaching by livestock. So we have used this rule on a couple of occasions in the last couple of years where there's been really bad soil erosion on the length of a watercourse, and encouraged the farmer to actually put some fencing up. And we've helped them with signposting them towards river trusts and CSF, and we've had a win-win really for the farmer and ourselves, and obviously the environment. The watercourse has been protected on these fenced off watercourses. So that's a good rule for us as well. Okay, next slide, please. And this is the last one. Position of livestock feeders. Again, you're not allowed to put them in 10 metres of watercourse or 50 metres from a spring well or borehole. And this is the sort of thing we are wanting to prevent. Obviously, that field, again, it might fall back into, I think it was Rule 6, where it's severely poached. And yeah, this is what we're trying to prevent. Sort of, it's not good for the stock, or any runoff from that will contain slurry and it'll damage the watercourse. So yeah, position of livestock feeders is a farming rule for water as well. Next slide, please. So yeah, just to reiterate, DEFRA expect that most farmers already comply. They're asking them to do a review and check that you do. We have a few leaflets if you need these as reminders. On our visits, we do take these leaflets out, and we have sent them to river trusts and CSF to get out there as well. We're realising that our comms, well, DEFRA comms is not always the best, so it may be a shock to know about, to have first heard about these rules today. Hopefully you've seen them in the press over the last year or two, and we're a little bit aware of them. The Environment Agency regulate these rules. It's not for the RPA. And we are pragmatic in, as we know they're quite new, and we don't go in there guns blazing. We offer advice and guidance and education to farmers to help them realise what they must do regarding staying within the real compliances for these ones. Okay, next slide. So yeah, just a summary. It came in 2018. It's basically focusing farmers on how they store manures and fertilisers, and how they carry out decent, good soil management. as I said, most farmers already comply with these rules. We regulate only where necessary, and yes, the rules have been reviewed right now. They were brought in for like a 3-year project from 2018. So as an environment agency, we're hoping we keep the rules, because they bring about change in a sympathetic way, and we're backed up with legislation. So if we're facing difficulties, we can just say, look, we have got the law behind us, whereas previously under COGAP it was advice and guidance, and it didn't give us any teeth. These regulations give us a little bit more teeth to get what we want from a farm visit or a breach of farming rules. And I think that's it for my presentation. Yeah, if you need further guidance, just search farming rules for water. It'll take you to .gov.uk, and there's a host of leaflets and information on nutrient management plans, soil management, and all about the rules. There's our contact number as well. If there's any specific questions, can go to our EA National Customer Contact Centre.